Hello. Last time we were together, let's get this off. Last time we were together, we were talking about the Minoans, the Mycenaeans. We were also talking about the Hebrews. And today we'll continue on in that vein. We'll discuss the Hebrews, Hebrew religion. We're going to the Assyrian civilization. We're going to the Persian civilization. And if we should be so lucky, we might even get into the Greeks today. All right, now you may be asking yourself, do college instructors always dress in T-shirts and very casually? Well, let me tell you this. I don't work in the summers. I'm not employed by Babylon in the summer. I take summer vacation with that. So consequently, these lectures that I'm preparing for you, I'm preparing on my own time. So anyway, I'm just trying to get a little bit ahead for the fall semester. So anyway, that's the way it is. Ordinarily, I would be in a classroom wearing perhaps a coat, always a tie, and a sports shirt, and trying to look the best I can. But this is the way it's going to work, when I'm doing it for free here. All right, so let's get into today's lecture as we talk about the Hebrew religion itself. Now, the Hebrew Bible is known as the Torah. It's a collection of customs and beliefs. It's known in Christianity as the Old Testament. It includes in Christianity the books of Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and it's a very fine collection piece of work here too. All right, now there are 4 stages in the development of the Hebrew religion. Polytheism, of course by now you should recognize that term. Polytheistic, worship of many gods. And before the times of David and Solomon, for the Hebrews, they did worship many gods by and large. You had such gods as Baal, Ashtaroth, Asherah. But by the times of David and Solomon, it's going to be monotheistic or monolatry, the worship of one God, and that's the way it is today. I did not write it out for you, but I mentioned this the last time we were together. This is Yahweh. Yahweh, Y-H-W-H, Y-A-H-W-E-H, Jehovah. It's the same God worshipped by Christians, same God worshipped by Muslims, and so forth. Now, part of the philosophy in the Hebrew religion is that of the transcendent theology. And let me just try to explain this a little bit. This is not so terribly important for you folks, but Yahweh is not a part of nature. Yahweh exists entirely outside of nature. And Yahweh cannot be understood by our simple human minds here. Now, the Hebrews worship Yahweh in several ways. The Hebrews worship God, Yahweh, by moral precepts. Now, this is very simple here, moral precepts. This is the 10 Commandments. And thou shalt not lie, thou shalt honor thy mother and father, thou shalt not kill. That's very simple, and that's a part of the Hebrew religion. And the second part of the Hebrew religion is that of the observance of rituals. And there are many of these rituals that are practiced by Hebrews today. And these rituals would consist of, and not today, but by conducting sacrifices of animals, observing Passover, fasting, if you will. Today, a ritual that's followed is Seder, which commemorates Passover. But anyway, and those are important things as far as rituals here. I wrote a word to the side here, which is called Shabbat. And I want you to look at the word carefully here, Shabbat. And can you see in that word Sabbath? Shabbat and Sabbath. Well, in the Hebrew religion, and this is kind of weird, for Americans or for Christians to understand this too. But when darkness sets in on Friday, businesses close, just life comes to a halt in Israel, or in Jerusalem in particular, and in Israel here. And this life does not resume to normalcy until the first 3 stars come out on Saturday. And that's known as Shabbat. All right, so what that means is that Saturday is a holy day, which is found in Israel, or people of the Jewish faith. And it's kind of interesting because if you're visiting an area of Jerusalem, in which Jerusalem is divided into 4 quarters, we have a Muslim quarter, a Christian quarter, a Jewish quarter, and an Armenian quarter, you've got to be very observant to this, particularly if you like a little bit of the nightlife. Because if you wander over into the Muslim sector, the Muslim quarter, and it's Friday, well, Friday is a Muslim holiday. It's a day of worship there. I shouldn't say holiday, it's a day of worship. So all business is closed. But if you enter into the Jewish side on Saturday, all businesses are closed. This would mean all bars, all restaurants are closed, And if you wait until Sunday and you go into the Christian sector, all restaurants, all bars are closed there. So unless you want to be a very hungry, thirsty person, you better observe these religious practices and plan appropriately for that too. But that's kind of interesting there. So let me go back to my documents camera here. All right, so that's moral precepts, rituals, and rituals which are very important. And we also had, as part of the Jewish faith here, taboos. Taboos. Do not boil a kid in its mother's milk. And I'm talking about, a goat, a baby goat. Do not consume flesh that still has blood that is present in it. Those are all taboos. Now, the third part here of the Hebrew faith is prophetic revolution. And this is where we observe the prophets of those times. You're probably familiar with them. And just a handful of these: Amos, Hosea, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, so forth. All right, so anyway, so the last part, and this is what I find to be so fascinating in the Hebrew faith, is the final stage here, which is called the post-exilic stage. It is also known as eschatological doctrine. Post-exilic stage or eschatological doctrine. Now, what this basically means, this is final matters. This is what will happen at the end of time. Yahweh will send a Messiah, an anointed one, that will lift the Jews to greatness and spread the word of Yahweh. There'll be a millennium of peace, and then there'll be the end of time. And we will have the final battle between good and bad. And if we were in class, I would ask you folks, where does this take place? And I know what you would tell me. I'm going to skip down a little bit. And you would tell me that this takes place, according to Revelation, anyway, this takes place at Armageddon. All right, and I won't argue that fact either. And I want to share a photograph with you if I can find it here. And this, where this final showdown is supposed to take place, is in the Jezreel Valley. Now, I'm up at Mount Carmel taking this photograph. And I took this photograph looking down at the Jezreel Valley. It is flat as can be down through here. And there is a crossroads city, and I can't really see it here. It's not even really a city, but there's a crossroads that has a city there that's called Megiddo. Megiddo. Now, Megiddo, and I don't have a photograph of this, but Megiddo is a city that has been excavated, and it was 25 cities stacked atop 25 cities. So it looks like in this valley right here, it's just a mountain, a hump that comes out of the valley, which is no more than just the remains of those 25 cities stacked on top of each other. So let's go down a little bit and let me show you the name of the city. The city is known as Megiddo today, but if we look at this and we put it all together, the name of the city is Armageddon. Armageddon. And this is supposed to be where the final showdown between good and evil takes place. And I will tell you good folks now that when Israel has fought a number of conflicts with Syria, these are where the tank battles take place here, right outside of Armageddon. Good against evil. Now, use a little bit of imagination and take Armageddon and put it all together. Put the word together, Armageddon, and say it quickly. Armageddon, Armageddon. Everybody got that? And that's kind of an interesting aspect with all of this. And I like that very, very much. All right, now, the thing about it, the Hebrew faith, let's get this. Do I have it? Yes, I do have it. The thing about the Hebrew faith is that the Hebrews were not great scientists. They were not great builders. They were not great artists. There are no sculptures that exist. The Hebrew code does not permit the making of graven images of any likeness in heaven, earth, or in water. So we don't have any records of that time, like paintings or sculptures. All right, now, Hebrew literature is some of the finest produced, and part of it is the Old Testament. Now, we have other Hebrew writings that are recorded in the Apocrypha. Now, the Apocrypha, these are Hebrew works that are not scriptural, and they're doubtful of religious authority, but nevertheless, they're writings here of that period of time here. Hebrew laws are recorded in the Deuteronomic Code, which is based upon fairness. And this is one of your supplemental readings here, and I hope that you'll read through that. Judaism is the mold from which Christianity emerged. Islam grew from Christianity and Judaism. Now, I want to share a couple of things with you here, and these are photographs from Jerusalem. And I told you at an earlier time that the temple, Solomon's temple, was destroyed. It was rebuilt, and it was destroyed again, and it was never rebuilt. I'll share a couple of photographs with you. Now, this was not destroyed. This is a wall, one of the walls of Jerusalem. See if I can show it a little bit better here. And Jerusalem is it's a city, an old city, or the old city. Let's see here. Maybe I can get this a little bit better here. If I try to dim it a little bit. There we go. And Jerusalem is an old city. And it's probably a mile by a mile by a mile by a mile. It has these high walls here. When we get into the times of Jesus, I'll explain this a little bit better to you and show you some more photographs with this. But those walls are still present to this very day. All right, let's share a couple of other photographs here. Now, where Solomon's temple was constructed, it was constructed on the Temple Mount. Now, if you look at the Dome of the Rock, and here's the Dome of the Rock, which is present right here. This is an Islamic mosque, by the way. The Muslims took over the city of Jerusalem, and and later built the Dome of the Rock. And for most purposes here, people of the Jewish faith and people of the Christian faith are not allowed to go in that area. When I was in Jerusalem, we were not permitted to go into this part of the Muslim sector right here. Now, all that remains of Solomon's temple today, I'm working upside down, but all that remains of Solomon's temple today is this wall. Some of you probably have heard of it before. It's called the West Wall. Some people call it the Wailing Wall, and that's all that remains of it. Now, notice all the visitors that are present here, such as this. Let me share a couple of other photographs with you. Now, this will be a close-up of this here, and I'm going to back away from the camera. I want to pick up something here that's off my desk. And I apologize for that. I should have had this right at my hand here. But this is where people of the Jewish faith or even Christian faith, where you can actually go up and you can worship here too. Now, where the wall is, obviously, the wall is right here. Men and women are not allowed to go together. It is separated. This side that you're seeing right here is the side for the males, and the side for the females is out of view, which is over on this side here. And when you go there, you have to wear the kippah. Now, this is what the kippah looks like. Well, I'll put it on. I'll put it on and let you see. And I'm sure you've seen this before. I look rather stupid with it, I guess. But nevertheless, that is what it is referred to as. And let me get back on my documents camera there. But you have to have a head cover if you're going to go up to the Wailing Wall. And in fact, the rabbis there, the assistants to the rabbis, will pass out pieces of paper to you and a pencil, and you can actually write out a prayer note. Such as they'll give you a little piece of paper, and you can just write out a prayer note, and then you can tuck it away, fold it away, such as this. And when you get up into the wall, the wall has a number of crevices there, and you just take it and you slide your prayer note right into the crevice. And I think that's really neat with that too. All right, here's another photograph showing you the Wailing Wall, and these are men. This is on the male side here, and you can see many of the people of the Jewish faith here. They're dressed in black here, have walked up into the walls there, and they're placing their little prayer notes and putting them in the side there. So anyway, that's kind of interesting with that too. And I hope you appreciate that, and I hope you'll take the time when you your first opportunity to go to Israel and go to Jerusalem. And if that did not whet your appetite, you wait until we get to the times of Christianity, and I'll try to emphasize that even greater too. All right, so let's move on, and I'm going to leave this very interesting section here, which deals with the Hebrews, and we're going to move into another civilization, in which this civilization is referred to as the Assyrian Empire. It's lasted from about 1362 to about 612 BCE. It's going to largely replace the Kassite Age, and it will exist roughly in the same areas in which the Kassites are, which they live. All right, now if you're following in your textbook, and I'm on page 62 in the textbook, this was the extent of the Assyrian Empire. Did I get that right for you? You can see that goes all the way from the Dead Sea, all the way from the Persian Gulf, which is over here, through Babylon. The capital of the Assyrian Empire was that of Nineveh, and Nineveh, which is present here, I should use my pointer rather than my thumb finger, And the Assyrian Empire will extend all the way down into Egypt. They actually did take Egypt here. So it was a rather large empire. Now the Assyrians spoke a Semitic language. A Semitic language, this is a language I mentioned to you before that is spoken by Hebrews and by Arabs and also by Ethiopians. Now for this group, they are remembered for being one of the most brutal and one of the most feared society in this area, the Mideast that we're talking about here. They were well known for their atrocities. It was not uncommon at all to have decapitations, impalings, and just deportations of individuals here. If you look at their reliefs, if you look at their sculptures, so to speak, here, where they engrave out into stone, it is always included with atrocities against people, are always hunting scenes. If you're following in your textbook on page 63, you can see there, this is a Neo-Assyrian atrocities here, showing people being impaled. If we go over to the next page, here you can see another here relief here showing the king Assurbanipal. And if you look up into the tree, I'm backwards here, so I can't really see what I'm talking about. I think it's right here. You can see the severed head of an individual, decapitated head of an individual. So it was a very, very brutalistic society. All right, now, some of the well-known Assyrian leaders, if you look at that, Assyrian, Syria, but one of the best known of the Assyrian leaders, look at the name here, Sennacherib, reigned from this period of time, 705, 681 BCE. There were a couple lesser figures, I'm not going to mention those, but another kind of well-known Assyrian leader, probably the best known, Assurbanipal. That was in the previous relief that I showed you just a few seconds ago. 668 to 627 BCE. And then we have another leader, and I'm not going to hold you responsible for Semiramat. Semiramat was a female. So on occasion, these Assyrians did have female leaders from 810 to 805 BCE. Not responsible for that, but I do wish you would know here Sennacherib, and you need to know Assurbanipal. All right, here. All right, let's see here. As I mentioned a second ago, very warlike, very brutalistic here. But they were defeated, and they were defeated in the year 612. Did I write that down for you? Yes, I did. So let me get this up here. But the Assyrians were defeated by another group, which were called the Medes, and they were assisted by the Chaldeans. Now, another name for the Chaldeans is the New Babylonians. So don't get that name confused with that of the Old Babylonians. The Old Babylonians were under Hammurabi, and now we have the New Babylonians here. New Babylonians, which of course had their capital city at Babylon. All right, so shall we move right along here? Okay, here I made the wrote down the Chaldeans, better known as the New Babylonians, and that's what I refer to them as the New Babylonians. Most of you are probably well familiar with the best known of the New Babylonian leaders, and that person's name is Nebuchadnezzar. I talked to you about it last time we were together, where Nebuchadnezzar and the New Babylonians set siege to Jerusalem. It was an 18-month siege before the Hebrews finally gave in, and that's when 10,829 people of the Jewish faith were placed in Babylonian captivity, to include some of the prophets, and were actually brought to Babylon, and there they were kept there for around 40 years, I believe it was anyway, if my memory holds correct on that. So that's Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nebuchadnezzar died in 562, and eventually will be followed by Belshazzar, and Belshazzar in 539 suffered a defeat at the hands of the Persians. All right. Now, some of the contributions, and the Persians will take over that area. Some of the contributions to the New Babylonians, let's see here. All right. I didn't write out these contributions here, so I'll just have to give them to you. But, I did write it down. And that of astronomy. And what these New Babylonians recognized were the 5 wandering stars. So just listen to my verbiage there, 5 wandering stars, because that's where they believed that the gods actually lived, that the gods lived in the heavens here. All right, now we recognize those 5 wandering stars today as Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, which of course are not stars, those are planets. All right, and what these New Babylonians actually believe, that when these wandering stars, or actually planets, were going through the zodiac, is that when they reached their apex was when that god had its strongest strength. So in other words, if you saw Venus, and Venus was a morning star, then that's when that god, which was represented by that star or planet, was the strongest. And when you did not see Venus, then that meant that that god's powers were at its weakest. And perhaps it would be the planet recognized as Jupiter. That would be indicative of that god that would be the strongest at that time. All right, so anyway, you kind of get what I'm talking about with that. Okay, now let's take a few minutes here and talk about another group which are known as the Persians. Now what I want you to do is think in your mind today like Persia is where Iran is located. And that's the language that is spoken in Iran today. They speak Persian. Farsi speak Persian. Now very little was known about the Persians until the year 650 BCE. In the year 559, a new king who was called Cyrus, King Cyrus, Cyrus the Great, Cyrus the Persian is another name that's recognized for here. And he will bring Persia to its prominence here. He will defeat the Medes, annex Lydia, if you will. They will eventually move down into Egypt. But when Cyrus died in 529, he would be replaced by his son, followed by his son, Cambyses. And it was through the efforts of Cambyses, let's get this position right, through the efforts of Cambyses that the Persians actually took over Egypt here. All right, now Cambyses would be followed not by his son, but be followed by another Persian leader who is recognized as Darius. Perhaps you've heard it pronounced as Darius. In fact, that's my preferred pronunciation, Darius the First, Darius the Great. If you insist upon pronouncing it Darius, that is fine too. Not the son of Cambyses, though. 521, 486 BCE, and I'm not really going to discuss Darius too much right now. We're going to wait until we get into the section on Greeks, and we have a couple of wars to talk about, in which I'll mention Darius and his son at that time. Now, one of the things that Darius was responsible for was the establishment of the Royal Road. Now, the Royal Road was kind of somewhat like a Pony Express system, and it stretched for 1,600 miles. Let me show you in your textbook, and if you're looking in your textbook on page 67, you can see where this Royal Road was. It was like a Pony Express system, and it went all the way from Sardis here to Susa here. And it was referred to as the Royal Road, 1,600 miles. And you know how a Pony Express system works. We'll have a rider that will transport mail, transport goods for perhaps 10 miles. The horse gets exhausted, and then a new rider and horse will follow along, or perhaps it even be the same rider that will continue the journey along there. All right, and anyway, and that's kind of interesting there. Some of you probably are familiar with this quotation. This actually came from Herodotus. Herodotus was a Greek historian anyway. And this is the way it works here for this quotation. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor gloom of night shall stay these couriers from the swift completion of their appointed rounds. I bet you've heard about that before. That is the motto day of our United States Postal Service. I'm not too sure if they really all went quick or not. All right, now a religion that was used in Persia, and this is kind of difficult to pronounce, and I want you to work on this religion and work on your pronunciation here. I want you to recognize this religion. All right, so look at it closely here. All right, that's a Z that begins the word, and the religion, the word is pronounced Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism. So work on your pronunciation with that. You'll see this again in the future when I'm going to ask you what was the principal religion that was found in the Persian Empire. It's Zoroastrianism. And where it was involved the worship of one God. Worship of one God, and that God which is known as Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda. The wise God. Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda. The wise God. All right, so we need to recognize that about Zoroastrianism and also about Ahura Mazda. All right, we have just enough time here, folks, to get into the section here on the Greeks. And I like this. This is one of my favorite sections. And in fact, I think I could spend 2 weeks in lecturing about the Greeks. And it's a wonderful place to visit. If you ever get a chance to visit Greece, visit Athens, Don't turn down that opportunity here. Many ruins, many relics, still in present to this very day. Now, ordinarily, the way we look at the Greek civilization, it existed between this period of time. This is when it was strongest. Between the year 600 BCE and 300 BCE. 600, 300 BCE. I don't hold you responsible for dates with this, But anyway, this is a Greek civilization here. Now, a couple of words, excuse me, that we need to associate with this. If you ever see the word Hellenic, if you ever see the word Elis, it means Greek. Now, Hellenic pertaining to the Greek. Elis, Greek. It is Greek. Some of you may, when you leave Bevel State, go to a major college and join the Greek system there. And the Greek system, has close ties, if you will, to Greece. And if you join a fraternity or join a sorority, you'll be a part of, listen to my words here, and I didn't write this out for you, the Pan-Hellenic Council, the Pan-Hellenic Organization. All Greeks. In fact, the very alcoholic beverage, beer, that they serve in Greece is called hell. And that's kind of interesting because if you do consume beer, which I do, you go into one of these Greek bars and you just tell the bartender, give me a bottle of hell. And they'll bring it right to you. They'll bring you a bottle of beer. And probably I should not have told you that, but I always found that to be amusing. Now, one of the things that the Greeks insist upon and place an importance in is that of human achievement. It's very, very important for the Greeks here. All right, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I want you to think Olympics, human achievement here. We're going to get away from the what is better for the community, but we're going to revere those individuals that have human accomplishments here. All right, now, for a Greek, in the Greek society, it was important to try to be a hero. Now, a hero is something you probably could recognize here, but a hero had to be a singer of songs, a winner of battles, a doer of good deeds, and favored by the gods. But you couldn't always trust the gods to be in your favor here. All right, so anyway, and that's what a true hero is. And above all, if you're in the Greek society, you avoid hubris. No good Greek would ever demonstrate, no good Greek warrior would demonstrate hubris. I'm trying to get this straightened up for you folks. That's Hubris. Now, hubris is showmanship. Hubris would be exaggerating, spiking a football, for example, high five, if you will, taking a knee. Anything that draws attention to yourself is hubris, and you would never find a Greek warrior doing that. Greek warriors carry out their job, carry out their mission, they're a warrior in combat, and then you gracefully walk away from it. No patting on the back, no self-congratulations. You always avoid hubris. And I like that. Now, in the Greek society, and you'll see this again as we get into the Roman society, they worship the gods. Now, think in your mind what we had a few minutes ago with the five wandering stars, with the Persians. Well, in the Greek society, it was quite similar to that, too. It's a polytheistic society. The gods live in the heavens. You worship the gods. You can't always trust the gods. The gods may disappoint you. You just don't know. You always want to be in favor with the gods, but gods can let you down. Now, some of these gods that are important is the god which is known as Pallas, or better yet, Athena. Athena is a goddess. It is female. It's the god of wisdom, god of love, God of love, Athena. It is the god of Athens, and at a later time I'll go through the Greek alphabet for you, but we won't do that today. And then we have the mightiest god, which is Zeus. The mightiest god is Zeus. And then we have another god, and this god, which is Poseidon. This is the god of the seas, always with a trident. Now, when we get to the Romans now, we're going to make a comparison here between the Greek gods and the Roman gods, and you'll find they worship, by and large, the same gods, only with different names. And we have another god here, and actually is a goddess, which is Aphrodite. Aphrodite is the goddess of love and marriage. the goddess of love. And then we have Hermes. And Hermes is the messenger god. It keeps evil spirits away from the doors. And then we have a most important god here, which is Aries. Aries, as you well know, and some of my students are very good with this. As soon as I mention this in lecture, they're telling me these are the gods and goddesses of this. But Aries is the god of war, the god of war. And we'll see an equivalent when we get to the Roman side of this. A couple others that I write these down. Artemis is a goddess of the hunt, And the Greeks believed that when a person died, a person did not go to heaven. The person went to an underworld. This was a place which was known as Hades. Hades. All right. And so anyway, and that's pretty much gives us a good start into the Greeks here, folks. We are doing very, very well as we're progressing through this course. You have about 3 more lectures, and then you're going to have your first examination. You need to stay up with this material. It will be virtually impossible for you to learn the night before your examination here. Once again, I remind you, I recommend to you folks that you read your narrative notes before you come to class. You read your syllabus, know what's going on here, read your narrative notes. Look through your textbook illustrations. You need to look at your videos. Some of these videos are rather lengthy here before you come to class here. Otherwise, you may find yourself being short of time and trying to learn all this material before you take your little quiz at the end of the class period. All right. Thank you very much for your attention. And when we return for our next lecture, we'll be talking about the Greeks. We'll continue that discussion. Thank you.